Future trends, deep insights, industry leaders. This is the iGaming Next podcast with your host, Heidi Lofthus.
Hey Heidi,
How are you?
doing great. How about yourself?
Good, good. You're calling in from Portugal. I'm calling in from Malta.
Yes, and I'm in the Algarve, just southern coast of Portugal. It's a gorgeous day here, just like I'm sure it is there. So,
Fantastic. Well, here is one of the not so good days, but
oh.
we keep living. So, Ken, you are my first guest onto these shows. I've been asked by my team at iGaming Next to cover the HR areas in the podcasts.
Awesome.
And
I'm honored to be your first guest. I'm excited too.
And I think it's I go in with a big bang. I mean, I got the VP from Hotjar to talk about remote working. It's quite cool, especially in these times. So, Ken, what about you? Why Hotjar?
So just brief intro to what Hotjar is, maybe, and then dive in about myself. Hotjar was founded in Malta in 2014 by our founder and CEO, David Darmanin, joined by 4 other co-founders, 3 of which live in Malta as well. And with the idea that the way to let people know what's going on their website required additional tool sets that are not common. So instead of just counting how many people and how many visitors, you want to see what they're doing and how they're interacting with your site. And that was the basic premise of what started Hotjar in 2014 and launched in 2015 after a year of development. The product had a lot of great things, the right magic, the right, definitely a good share of luck, but the founding team did a fantastic job building a product that was right for the market. And it took off. And in 2016, a year later, I joined as VP of Operations, and which is my title today. Although because of our success and growth, my responsibilities have definitely grown. I was the 14th team member to join Hotjar, and now we have 158 and growing. And 4.5 years later. So what attracted me to Hotjar initially was, and at that time I was living in Mexico on vacation in Belize, and I was in between consulting gigs myself, working as an independent freelancer, and had come across this cool new tool that was just making traction called Hotjar, and saw that they were looking for a position that actually suited my skill set well, and it was remote. And I'm an American. I've been an expat living nomadically with my family for the past almost 7 years, and there was a lot of magic that lined up for me. I reached out, got to know David, the CEO, and I had skills that he was looking for, and Hotjar definitely checked the boxes for me, and was extremely attracted to the remote-based aspect that David had put together, and was growing with his vision for the company, and suited my core values, aligned with what the company had outlined as core values extremely well, and best decision of my life.
So before we go into how Hotjar is actually working in terms of remote settings, there are 3 touch points I want to just add on what you're saying. One, Hotjar, speaking to the wider audience and the market. I mean, even myself, viewing sort of the movies after a recording from Hotjar. I mean, you don't have to be analytical to actually see the value of the system. It's absolutely amazing. It's fun to see where the players have been. 2, the nomad life. I mean, you're actually doing quite a high profile job at Hotjar. You're covering all the operations, including the HR areas and all the people operations, basically, doing the nomad life. I mean, this could be considered a dream life for many people. And
it works for me and my family for sure. I will say it's definitely not for everybody. And there's several people at Hotjar who've tried it and have said not for them. And there's a lot of people who are just very, very happy with the fact that they don't have to go into an office space and they can work in their basement or a co-working space or what have you.
So on the role spec that got you interested, or how they reached out to you, was that the big, boom saying this is a remote position? And are you still doing this in terms of recruitment?
Yes. Yeah. So initially, I reached out to them after finding out about Hotjar and the position, and there was a number of things that attracted me. The product first and foremost, but definitely I was looking for a remote-based client or gig at the time, and I've been working remotely for a number of different clients for a couple of years, and definitely now in a current or post-pandemic world where remote is a hot topic. Back then, it definitely was not. 4.5 years ago, it was not a hot topic, and so there wasn't as many companies that were as progressive and looking to go remote simply for the benefits that remote offers and the flexibility that offers it. And one of the things that really got David and the founding team behind the aspect of remote work was the aspect of borders beyond Malta. So at the time, the co-founding team in Malta recognizing a vision that was global. And today we service customers in 180 plus countries. So we are global. And the idea behind it was, well, in order to make sure that we can attract the right talent to support our customers in the time zones that matter most that we focus on, we need to think beyond Malta. And they began hiring in other countries. And so I think at the time I was the second person that was American, the first person living in Mexico, and we've continued to grow from there. And so now we're in 31 countries worldwide, 32 countries now worldwide and growing. And it was an idea that the founders recognized that, let's hire where the talent is, not hire where we are.
So gaming, as we represent in these programs, we're in the starting, what would you call it? Starting the spots right now of looking into the future of working from another place. And it's going to be nice going into your view on the hybrid workings. Let's go there a little bit later on.
Sure.
But in terms of recruitment, let's hire where the talent is. You only have one office, and that's the one in Malta.
And it's really not I guess technically it's an office. It's a mailing address within a Regis co-working facility. And we used to have an office in St. Julian's, and it was so infrequently used. What we recognized is, if the refrigerator broke, the stuff that's in there could rot for 2 weeks before somebody goes into the office, swings by and happens to do maintenance and try keeping a plant alive, right? And so we had this space that you need a mailing address, but we had the space that wasn't being used. And maybe once or twice a week somebody would swing by, but it was not an efficient use of money, capital, space. There was waste that we were using, and we try to be an environmentally conscious company as well. And so ultimately it led us to less headaches, better use of time, energy, and space by running a co-working space. And that's where
So saving the money, are you putting the money instead on the employees in terms of benefits, or?
I would say we're not saving a significant amount of money, but we are saving some money. And as a principle, while Hotjar is a profitable company, we do invest our revenue back into the business, into growing the team, growing the facilities. Obviously, as a thriving business, your team members are payroll costs or your number one cost. And so by default, we're doing that. And over time, since we've been able to grow, we have been able to mature our salaries and help to define a remote-based salary model that we believe to be equitable and has been very attractive to pulling in talent. Happy to talk more about that if it's helpful.
Nice. Yes. How much are you actually looking into the specific markets in terms of salary benchmarking, etc.?
Yeah. So if you think about it, we're in 32 different countries, which means we have people in expensive job market or more expensive job markets, such as say London or Berlin. But we also have team members who are in the Ukraine or Russia or Albania, where much lower cost of living. And however, we want to enable our team to have the freedom to move around. We believe it's very critical. And so we've hired somebody who started, myself being nomadic, I've moved around quite a bit since joining Hotjar, probably been lived in 20 some odd countries over the past 4.5 years. But I'm kind of the edge case exception, but we had one individual that's been with us for 3.5 years. He started living in Portugal. He's Portuguese. He and his girlfriend moved to Poland, and they lived there for 1.5 years, and now they live in the Netherlands. Well, instead of saying, well, okay, the Netherlands is more expensive, we'll pay you more there, but if you move and you go back to Poland, we'll pay you less because it's less cost of living. We basically said that's a nightmare. It's a nightmare to scale. It's a nightmare to manage and maintain. And so what we do, we baseline all salary back to London. And so we pay the wages, the equivalent to London. We picked it out to be one of the more expensive cities throughout Europe and said, let's baseline our talent pool based on that. And let's index it to the high end of a London wage. And so all of our wages, for instance, for our software engineers, our most common position is baseline to a London-based wage indexed on the high quartiles. So what that means is if you want to live in London, you're making a good salary, you're in the upper end quartile, but we have individuals in Kenya, we have individuals in Greece, and they're living on, they're being paid a London-based wage. And so from our vantage point, it shouldn't matter. We want the best talent, so let's pay an attractive wage that will then attract to them. And if somebody chooses to move to a different location, as long as they have good internet,
exactly.
they can do their job.
Nice. What about benefits? I mean, so in gaming, you have these very, very standard, at least in Malta, gym card, health insurance, everything at the office. You have breakfast, you have Friday beers. That's sort of the standard package. Some might have some flights going, 2 times a year to your home country. What about you guys?
So based on our model, we like to, just like with the freedom to live within a geography. And to be fair, it's not completely free. Like I couldn't get up and move to Australia. The time zone differences would be a deal breaker. It would kill the productivity for my team. And so we do hire within 2 different regions, Europe and Africa, EMEA, and which you got to, millions of people in that job applicant pool, which would be great. And you can move anywhere in between EMEA throughout your time with us, or the Americas, which is the same aspect from Chile to Canada and anywhere in between. And so we hire based on those regions, with giving the flexibility and the freedom within those. We apply that same type of philosophy to our perks. So our perks, we tend to be a bit more non-traditional. So in the aspects of, Friday beers or something like that, well, what if I don't like Chisk? And I'm sorry, I don't. And I want, a good, Samuel Adams lager or something like that. Well, what we tend to do is our perks give the ability for each team member to invest in what's important to them. So for instance, we have a well-being budget. So every team member that works for us gets 2,400 euros a year, or you could average that to 200 euros a month to spend on their well-being. And so whether that well-being is a gym membership, barbells if you want at home for your home office, or if you want to spend that on meditation or massage or whatever it is that brings your health in a non-medical way, your health and your well-being to focus, we want you to invest in that. And so all of our perks are really based around, we want you to have the freedom to use it and apply it because we're budgeting for it. So how you spend it, we'd rather you spend it on something that you're going to get the most use out of. And that includes our home office budget, where you buy the laptop that you want to work on. You're going to be working on it every day. So let's not give you a Lenovo laptop if you hate Lenovo's and you want to go Mac or what have you. Same type of thing. We give you a budget. You're an adult. You spend it on what you're going to get the most optimization out of. And we believe we're going to get the best return.
So with an office, and then you have the Friday beers with the luxury of actually getting together. So you automatically, with that sort of investment, you also get the culture and the engagement. People get to meet each other. What about culture at Hotjar? The distances. I mean, then you have 150 people never actually meeting.
So yeah, great question. So at Hotjar, what we in pre-COVID times, we would meet, everybody in the company would have a semi-annual meetup. So every 6 months, everybody had the opportunity to be flown together for an in-person meet and greet, where you can give people a hug, you can, shake their hand, you can share a beer in the flesh, right? And so we did that. We've done that traditionally twice a year. And that's one way that encourages that kind of face-to-face connection. Obviously, in COVID times, you're much more restricted with travel. And
what are your thoughts this year?
This year, we're not looking to do a face-to-face. It's it's possible, obviously, that different countries are going to start to open up and loosen up, but the aspect that all 32 or a high majority of them are going to loosen up and have the ability for all of us to fly together to a central location, we've kind of said we want to be very upfront with our team that we think that's highly unlikely to happen. I would say it's highly likely to happen within the next 12 months, but I wouldn't, to pull 150 some odd people together, and we're growing. So by the end of the year, we'll be over 200. By the time you say we're going to plan an event for 200 people, well, we need to go scout the location. We want to, look at the facilities, definitely take care of all that. And the logistical nightmare of planning that when you don't even know for sure where you're going to be or what country is going to be, we've kind of said, unfortunately, let's take a pause on that. And we'll pick up on that. But we do a number of different things, both in person, like that, where the entire company comes together twice a year. But we also, another budget we have is what we call the working together budget, where if you've always been curious about, Cape Town, South Africa, and we've got somebody there that's working from there, you want to see what it's like to work beside him or her, that person can offer to host other team members, and everybody has a 2,000 euro a year budget that they can go and spend to fly to Cape Town to go work with this person. There's requirements that we put together, like that person has to invite others. It can't just be them and their best friend. We want to encourage more team building and more morale when those kind of events happen. But you can do that. You've got 2,000 euros a year that you can invest in doing that and meeting that. So you can do that in small teams. You can do that in cross-departmental teams. It doesn't matter. And those have been very popular in the past. Again, we haven't been able to do that with COVID, but we have then shifted. We've shifted to doing a lot of stuff online. So sorry, Heidi.
Yeah, and no worries. I can see that on the paper or in theory, this is, the dream. All our people, they travel to each other, they go and see a game together, they work better together because they met and get some kind of rapport. Is there any, as people are meeting face to face, there are always inclusions and not maybe exclusions, but where one person is not actually traveling to meet the other one, so actually not coming to the Friday beers if this was in an office setting. How is there any risk that you lose out on people not traveling, or how do you keep track of this?
Yeah, great question. I would phrase it the way that you did as well, which is in an office it also happens. So are we introducing any new risk that already it does or doesn't exist? No. There are different people and different personalities that have different aspects of what belonging is, right? And how to get the most out of it. So our biannual meetups where we would have, we would tell everybody, this is a requirement. We ask you to be here, unless, of course, you have a circumstance such as, it's my partner's birthday or my kids got this big performance or anything like that. But we would get roughly 90% attendance at these events at any given time. Some people would be out for parental leave and whatnot, but for the most part, everybody knew to go. And that's the way we make the most out of it. And at those gatherings, there are people who are more introverts and don't want to interact in a larger group, and there are people who are more extroverts. And it's a mix, just like there would be in any office environment. So I think what exists in the office also exists in the same type of remote aspect, but you do have to fine-tune your lenses to be able to see the differences and how best to support individuals in different ways. But just like you do it in a real office, you do it.
Yeah, it sounds like with the working as remote as you do, I mean, 110%, the responsibility of the employee lies a little bit more on the employee. I mean, everything from IT setup, your own health insurance, obviously you mind your own perks, but also the part of it's up to me to be included, because as it sounds on you, I mean, there are things to be included in.
Yes, there are.
Is this where the Harry Potter system comes in? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So we have a number of different aspects in which we try to promote inclusion across different people who are interested in different things, and so they surface naturally in an opt-in environment, such as we use Slack internally for real-time collaboration. So people create all kinds of different channels. There's a bread making channel. There's an American football channel. There's an LGBTQ channel. There's all kinds of different aspects that the team naturally forms around. But to your point, those are opt-in. So what do we do to also help to pull people in? And so one of the things that we did is we created what we call houses, inspired by Harry Potter with the houses. So any new team member that joins is automatically assigned to a house, and that house is a mixture of cross-departmental other teammates, roughly 6 to 8 people in a house, and as we grow, we add more houses, and so it's meant to be kind of a collection sounding board, so that we make sure people get into there. Into houses, and there's different houses have different ceremonies as to how they welcome a new house member, and then we use that house system to, when we organize. If we organize for a game that we're doing on Zoom, we might organize by houses. If we're doing, we've done other aspects from brainstorming competitions to charitable contribution ideas, assigning it to the houses to come up with ideas. So you get a little bit more interaction amongst groups of people who are not normally, who are interacting with people that they normally don't work with. And it's another way that we try to mix it up. And we do keep, we don't have a sorting hat, but
who would that be?
That would be people from my team for sure. So anytime somebody's joining, they do look at who is, are there too many, people from marketing in this one? And here's a new marketing person. No, we're not going to put them in that house. We're going to put them in this house, just to keep more diversity. So you automatically ingrain that.
Amazing. And this is well received with employees, I guess. Already at onboarding, perhaps.
It's done at onboarding. They're told their house that they're in, and then they're put into the Slack group that the house has together, and a couple of other channels that we use for collaboration for the houses, so we can communicate, and more likely so they can communicate themselves as a group. And some houses are super active and do all kinds of things. They'll do monthly lunches together, and others are less active and they wait for engagement from in an activity-based aspect. But
do people ever want to change house?
I don't think we've ever had that request. No.
Okay, so the hatter, the distributor, does a good job there. Nice.
It must be.
I mean,
that's an interesting question. I'm sure it'll happen someday.
Let us know and how to handle that, because as we were talking about this, so I run this HR network, HR Connect. So the heads of HR meet me once a month, if not more often, and we discuss with guests, and we discuss within the group in terms of what is happening right now. And what is happening right now is everything from vaccines, home offices, going back to the office, etc. So I would say that almost everyone are looking at a hybrid setup, and this is where you come in, because I know that you have an entirely different view on the hybrids. So the hybrids that my members describe is 2 to 3 days in the office, but the actual sort of framework around this has not yet been cleared because times are still uncertain and things are going well as it is, however the setups are. 100% you guys working from not the office. What is the risks with hybrid? Why is your view on hybrids not a good one?
Yeah. So I'm definitely an all or nothing on the hybrid model. Either don't have 100% of the people going to the office or 100% people work from home. The hybrid model, it has a couple of different drawbacks from my vantage point. Number one, we already touched on the ability of maybe for, you kind of have cliques that kind of go together in a normal office space. Well, an office with hybrid where it's either schedule people to go in or schedule people to, or to you opt in and you build your schedule. Either way you sort it, you're either going to have the problem of, I want to go to the office and my friends are there. I hope it's their week if it's assigned, or I want to, or maybe I can opt in and I have to work only a certain number of days and me and my friends all go work together. You amplify that clique in doing so. You end up having much more insular aspects and less common ground. What you want to do in a healthy work environment is have people feel that they're equal, that they're equally respected, and that they have the freedom to work within how they want to work with. And if it's, oh, wow, I want to work on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the office because that works well for me, but another clique is already in there, oh, man, I can't work at that time. Or somebody else has already monopolized that. Or maybe I don't want to go in on Tuesdays and Thursdays because the people that are in there are not the people I click with. Well, again, level the playing ground as opposed to physical barriers of when I can and can't go in. And then you have the aspect of the bigger aspect that I see is actually in order to encapsulate if there's a need to go into the office and the need for face-to-face, then presumably there's a need for control of that in order to keep the rhythm going. In other words, you want these 8 people always going in because they work together. Well, now that you've opened the door and people see what it's like to work at home, or there's different aspects of maybe this school opened up, but this one hasn't. Mine goes private, yours goes public, and there's different aspects. Or my spouse's, aspects impact my schedule, my ability to come into the office. All of those things are going to happen. They happened before, but now they're happening in a much more rigorous aspect. And so the ability for me to come in and work with a group of 8 that I used to now is actually much more constrained. I now have much more external constraints that say, oh, wow, I can't do it that time because I need to do childcare or what have you, or the dog we got during the pandemic now needs to be walked twice a day or whatever. It becomes much more problematic than it ever has. And so you've opened up the door for this freedom, but now you're pushing people right back into an environment where some people have the freedom, some don't. They're working establishments throughout. I say, can the entire office save money, empower the people to stay at home? They can get together and work at cafes, or they can book their own time at a co-working space when they want, what works for them. And when needed, the company can organize that for those to benefit from.
So what we're saying is basically, if you need to have a framework to set where people come into the office to meet whatever relevant people that you're going to meet with, that's a no-go. Whereas if you have no limit space, people can come and go as they want, maximum one day they can work from home, then that would be fine. Is there any solution that you can work both from home or from the office?
I would say it has to be 100% optional.
Optional.
So at Hotjar, one of the things that we started to do before we moved out of the office is to try to encourage more people to utilize the office. It was a great space, and so we wanted to, it was a great, relaxing space. We had a nice setup. We had, nice perks and easy to get in and out. But what we noticed is all of a sudden, since it was optional, the same group of people would always meet there up on Wednesday. And what that meant was those people, and that included like our CEO and a couple of executive members. So those people became in the know, because those side conversations that they would have, only this clique of people had that advantage of the CEO's ear right in front of them. Nobody else had that except for the people who had the ability to come into the office on that optional day. And so it created a bit of, inequality for those not living in Malta, or even those in Malta that didn't want to drive all the way, from Maliha to St. Julian's, and
there's
because of traffic or whatever.
Yeah, quite a big risk as well of favoritism. You always come to the office, you're extra loyal to the team.
That's right. You feel obligated then to come in it's this optional thing, I guess I should go in there. And I'm not saying there's not benefits from going in there and what you can, see and be mentored by the CEO and doing that. Those kind of opportunities definitely exist, but they then become favored, or they become, obviously in the HR world, we're really, encouraged and concerned about inclusivity. Well, there's nothing more exclusive than something like that. And so you think about, how is that right in balancing and leveling the playing field from an inclusivity field? It's not. It's the opposite. Now, the CEO might choose to say, I want to mentor this person, and you can take that separate. But when it's based on the confines of an office and who can physically get to them, it's not fair.
2 points. One, productivity, because this is probably one of the reasons as to why management would want to keep an office. And second point, Hotjar started off like this. This is how it was built. So everything has been this was the starting point, and everything after that are add-ons, positive add-ons for the employee and for Hotjar in the end as a company. Whereas imagine a 250 on average employee company. How should they start? Gaming, you can work online. Most of the companies can actually do online, or fully digital. Where to start? With the Harry Potter houses, or with the home offices, or, and the united front really has to be there from management. I mean, it's a big ball to start rolling from nothing.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, and I've taken a number of calls and correspondence with people of, hey, we started off in the office. We've now been working at home for a year. We've decided we want to keep working from home for a year. What do we need to do? And you're absolutely right. It starts with the top. The management has to be bought in. This is what we're doing. So let's rethink everything that's in place, process-wise, procedure, tools, security, what have you. Let's rethink all that to make sure it's optimized for security and optimized for performance and reliability. The aspect of I need people to come into the office for productivity to be powerful is a dated and broken concept. I mean, think about all the time people spent commuting and having to commute back and so forth. At the end of the day, you measure productivity by output. So how much is that person getting done? How much is that team doing? Are they meeting their goals? Are they exceeding them? Are they underperforming? That's where you get the idea of, people's productivity and performance. And oftentimes what we found is when we see productivity lagging, we should probably re-optimize what we have in place. And so I would say that the nature of us working remote makes us more agile and more leaning into the aspect of what we're doing needs to be re-optimized and not status quo. More so. And I know you don't have to be remote to think that way, but I think by being remote, you lean into that more so.
Yeah, it might be visible more. You see it quicker.
Yeah.
All right. So how do you actually measure productivity? You're saying, like, does every person have KPIs on, from scratch, or how's the setup?
Yep. About a little over a year ago, we adopted the OKR framework and decided to cascade OKRs starting at the company level first on an annual basis, but every quarter, every team or squad is going to have their own objectives and key results. And we go through a process of planning them over the course of about a month, where we first ideate them and then refine them and then finalize them. So this week we're finalizing our Q2 OKRs for Q2 2021. And what we've gotten into it is you see it, what is the objective the revenue squad is going to have, or the marketing team is going to have? What are their objectives? And you see them up front, and we share them across the company. We're very transparent. And so you put this out there to say, this is what these people are doing this quarter. So you can see it that very clearly of, is that a bold thing that they're trying to get done this quarter? Or is it like, yep, we're just going to do this and keep the momentum going and not do anything tough. So you begin to see the teams that are that are betting for more progress versus more run of the mill, and you can then track their performance. So every week within the same tool that we use, teams report how they're trending and tracking towards their objectives and key results. And so it becomes very obvious of either who's not taking not taking more aggressive bets and who is taking more aggressive bets, and how they're performing against them. And we're not looking for every team to take big bets every single quarter, but we also want to make sure people aren't phoning home, just a slam dunk objective that's really not making them stretch.
One question that came to mind in terms of working remotely, it's also the 8-hour day. What's your view on this? I remember in school you get, on Mondays you get these 10 points, and by the end of the week you're supposed to be finished. Whenever you're finished, after that you can do the fun stuff. Or when you start working, it's especially if you're working shifts, you're here 8 hours and then you're free on the sharp hour. How is that set up for you guys?
Yeah, again, we try to be as flexible as we can be to make sure that collaboration can happen, but the people's own freedoms can also be maximized as well. So we do ask that anybody that joined the company work a 40-hour week, dedicate 40 hours to Hotjar. But how and when they dedicate those 40 hours, we don't have a lot of prescribed aspects to that. And so we do ask everybody to work a Monday through Friday, 40 hours. But if you're an early riser and want to start, working at 6 a.m., that's great. That means, and if you want to work until 6 p.m., but take, 4 hours off in the middle of the day, that's fine. There are some So what you'll see is different people start and stop at different times throughout the day. Certain people might take a 2-hour lunch and get a workout in at the same time. That's fine. Different people. There's been times where I've been traveling and, we wanted to go see the changing of the guards at Buckingham Palace. Let's go do that. I'm going to make sure I don't schedule a meeting, and my wife, kids, and I go check that out. There's no reason why you can't build that into your workday. And the only thing that we do ask consistently is that everybody in the company, what we found is there's still a need for global or regional collaboration between the Americas and EMEA. So we ask everybody to be online from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Central
Core
European
hours.
time.
Yeah.
So those 3 hours, we do ask that everybody be available so that you can have reliable collaboration with everybody in the company. We can do team events at that time and so forth.
Everything seems very well planned and thought through. Productivity, you got it. Inclusion, you got it. But in terms of meeting setups and efficiency, what are the do's and don'ts? We who start now, where, you have to be in time for the meeting. You have to have the video on. But there can still be meetings with 10 people as if we were in a room together. But this cannot really be working with you guys.
It can, and at times it does, but that's not our default. Our default is that the fewer number of people in a meeting, keep meetings to a minimum. You should try not to meet, because as individuals, we're all professionals and experienced, and we can collaborate online through many different forums. We want as many people doing heads down, deep thinking work as much as possible, because that's where the real work happens. That's where we ship, really good code. That's where, we do impressive marketing campaigns or service our customers well. But when you're in meetings, you can't do that. So we try to encourage fewer meetings as possible and fewer people as possible in those meetings. And Jeff Bezos from Amazon characterized the 2 pizza rule. So imagine you had, 2 pizzas that you ordered. That's how many people you want to be able to feed, that many people in your meeting. That's how big you should have. So ideally, you want to have no more than 5 people in a meeting, and in order to get stuff done. Now, we break that rule all the time, right? We don't have a hard and fast rule on that, but we have that as our rule of thumb. And so when meetings are that big, you should have a good reason to make sure that you have that many people, because that's an expensive meeting. And that people's time is extremely valuable. So we have a mantra of it should be a pain in the ass to get somebody's time, and we want to encourage that.
What more rules do you have? Okay, so as few people as possible, as short as possible, video on.
Video on, absolutely.
Can you be out walking? Yeah.
You can be out walking, but oftentimes when we're in a meeting, the out walking around could be distracting. Maybe you're wanting to share a screen, or you're asking for collaboration on a document, and then the wind starts blowing. You get the microphone noise of the wind blowing, and we have no rule against being out walking around, but we also say, is that really practical? Video on for sure. There's nothing more. There's no other way to really make sure you've got the connection than to see somebody and make sure their eyes are on you. If they're looking away, if they're working on things throughout, then they're not fully engaged. And in order to keep them engaged, you got to have a short meeting. If you're running long-winded meetings, you lose people. You get that Zoom fatigue that people talk about. Advanced material and send advanced material for reading in advance. So everybody's like, oh, let me just read through this. And okay, let's spend the next 20 minutes reading through it. Or
I'll join you on the water, by the way. Cheers.
Sounds good. Cheers.
Promotions. How do you know if a team member is, you have the statistics in your systems and the person is sort of following all the meeting rules and joining the Potter houses and the inclusion stuff. But what about sort of promotions? Does that work any differently?
I would say probably not extraordinarily differently, but we do systematize it like we do many things in the company. So every 6 months, everybody goes for a performance review. And as part of a performance review, you're also eligible for a seniority review as well as a compensation review. We make very, very clear and deliberate choice of, at that performance review, not only are we talking to the team member about their performance, but they're guaranteed to get a conversation about their salary and their readiness for promotion. Doesn't mean either one of them change, but it means we're going to talk about them to say, hey, based on your performance relative to your peers, are you exceeding or not, and should there be a change in compensation or title? So at those performance reviews, we look at 2 criteria. Number one, how are they performing against our core values? We take our core values very, very seriously. There's 5 core values. Happy to share them, and you can share them with this audience as well.
That's good.
And we ask that people definitely adhere to them because we feel it's the best way to work and service our customers, and it's served us really well to date. So that's number one. And then we asked how they're performing against their seniority criteria. So every position in the company has criteria that we evaluate for seniority. So if somebody's an associate engineer or a software engineer or a senior software engineer, there's criteria that we've already mapped out that determines here's the criteria for that. So as part of the performance review, the lead or manager for that software engineer is giving them feedback as to how they're performing within their current band, and has solicited feedback from peers, and as well as the team member themselves, as well as their own purview on their execution against their OKRs, and evaluates, are they performing well within the core values, and have they performed well against the seniority criteria. And you could be killing it. You could be killing it on the seniority criteria, but if you're not paying attention to the core values and there's concerns about transparency or your commitment to our customers or what have you, that promotion's not going to happen. It's just not that you don't meet the criteria.
Okay, so what about the future? What if we go back to gaming? I mean, you guys are obviously gonna continue the way that you are. Gaming specifically, but the world generally, where are we in 5, 10, 20 years? I mean, my kids are Fortniting at home. They're probably going to be so ready for this when they come in age. But are they never going to go to enough? Like, what's your vision on this? What do you think?
I think that I like to believe that the pandemic just accelerated the aspect of remote work dramatically, and that it will continue to stay on a rapid pace. The aspect of going back into the office in a hybrid model or a dedicated full-time model, I think is actually going to detract from employers from attracting the talent that they want. It's going to be like requiring suits and ties that people used to have in the 60s or something. It's going to be seen as something so dated that I have to travel here to get to work and do my job, when I can easily save an hour and a half a day and commute and stay right here. So I think that that's going to happen as a differentiation from employment. I also think that our tools are going to continue to get better. So we'll be able to replicate additional aspects much more so. I mean, in the past year, we've seen an explosion of collaboration tools, many of them not too good, but there's promise in a lot of areas. And so there's tools that we've begun to use to enhance collaboration. There's been online virtual meetup software, happy hour software that helps to bring in different elements. It'll never replace the aspect of being physically able to meet somebody, but I think will continue to enhance the augmentation of a virtual world and break down borders, barriers, increase inclusion, increase diversity, much more than we ever have in the past. I think we're just getting started.
especially in the digital world where we are working. Sorry, I'm not. I think we're up on almost 50 minutes already. So let's. I think that we should round off. But my worries is that, so if I have young children now, they're not getting used to the frequent meeting friends at school, etc. That combined with the most popular, what are you going to be when you grow up, kind of job is now a YouTuber, not a doctor, not an astronaut. Will the future see a lot less engagement in terms of the works where you actually have to be in the office or in the hospital or out on the roads, the actual not digital world? That's but that might be questions for psychologists and future visionaries.
I think look, here's my view on it is rewind the clock 80 years ago, and radio was the way, and the way people got their news was through a newspaper. And then the radio came about and people began to get glued into their living room because you couldn't be far from the radio. Then you became glued to televisions, and that was bad. And people had said, that's too much media, that's going to destroy your brain or whatever. And now we're glued to screens in a different way on our, on our phones or our computers. And I think we're far better off than we were when we were glued to a TV. I think this is just evolution of media and evolution of consumption. And I believe there's far greater benefits than there are drawbacks. My kids have been on the road for, my son more than half his life. He's been a nomad. It's what he knows. And kids are extremely pliable. He just finished a big time geology unit online this morning that he's been working on for 3 months. It's like huge. And we're going to go out and celebrate tonight. And he's interacting with kids in classrooms across all of Europe, and building these and collaborating with them in different ways that we didn't have when we were kids. And so I think, again, I think we're just getting started, and there's a different way to look at things every single day. And the things that they're doing are going to be ancient 10 years from now as well.
Yeah. And I mean, they're going to be so much more ready for it.
Yep.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Heidi. It's been great.
Lovely having you. I mean, answers to everything. Speak to you again.
It was helpful. Yeah, sounds great. Take care.
Take care. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.